Considering Yinlin is so popular she broke the payment processing system over at Kuro Games, it is to nobody's surprise that many people will want to put her on their teams. And honestly, can you blame them? In this guide, we will first go over what weapons she can run, what echo sets to use on her, and the priority at which you should level her fortes. And after we got all the boring stuff out of the way, we will delve into how exactly her kit works, her optimal role in teams, some advanced combos, quick swap techniques, and the different styles of rotations you can use on her teams, making sure that you can take your Yinlin blade to the next level. Sounds good? Let's get started then! First, let's take a look at her weapon options, starting with the best in slot, her own weapon. We can see that it gives us a ton of crit rate and buffs our offensive capabilities, even more so while we are off the field. This should already give us a hint as to what role she ideally takes on in a team comp, but we will get back to that later. If you don't have her own weapon, but have a battle pass and haven't redeemed another weapon already from the box, her next best option is actually going to be the weapon you can get from there, Augment. If you have neither of these, you can run with the craftable weapon Rectifier number 25, which you can actually get for free. If you go do the Tiger Maw exploration quest, the next day a merchant will show up at the mine who has a weapon selector box out of which one of the options you can pick will be this weapon. Another way you can get it is by crafting it, but do note that the number of materials required to craft it are a bit on the outrageous side of the spectrum. Now, if you have none of these options, but have the 4-star Rectifier variation from the gacha, then that is a very solid option on her, giving you an easier access to both her ultimate, as well as helping you charge her outro skill faster. Do note that the standard 5-star Rectifier is not a particularly good option on her, besides being a semi-decent stat stick. If you really can't get any of the previously mentioned weapons for her, or while you are in the process of getting them, the 3-star weapon which gives you attack percentage is a passable option. Having covered her weapons, let's take a look at her optimal echo sets. While at first glance her optimal echo set is going to be the 5-piece Void Thunder, if your main DPS is well built, then running a 5-piece Moonlit Cloud set is also a very competitive option, especially because the 5-piece buff stays on your DPS character even if you quick swap them out. And considering how her best on-field DPS partner is Calcharo, who is extremely quick swap heavy, you can see why it can work. As for main stats, you should be aiming for crit damage on your 4-cost echo if you get her weapon, and crit rate if you don't. Either 2 electro damage bonus on your 3 costs, or 1 electro damage and 1 energy regen, or if you're really unlucky with your drops, even attack percentage is fine. And then for your 1-cost echoes, again you should be using attack percentage. If you don't have a full 5-piece of either of the previously mentioned sets, running a 2-piece plus 2-piece of Void Thunder and Lingering Tunes is going to be almost as good as a 5-piece set. I personally even prefer this setup mostly because it is super easy to set up, can be swapped around multiple characters easily, and allows you to use the Mech Abomination active echo, which is one of, if not the best active echoes in the game. Moving on, taking a look at her fortes, we can get some more pretty obvious hints about what kind of role she will be taking on in your teams. Her basic attack multipliers are atrocious, and will be the least important to level up. You could even leave it at level 1 for now, honestly. Her main priority is going to be Forte Circuit, with Resonance Liberation coming in at a second spot, followed by Resonance Skill, and then Intro Skill. As for her passives, she gains a lot of crit rate from them, and I mean a lot. She gets 8% from stat nodes, and then 15% from her first Ascension passive node, which is tied to her using the first part of her Resonance skill, which makes it pretty easy to access as well. So with all the boring basics out of the way, let's first examine her kit a bit more closely. Her main source of damage is going to be coming from her Forte Circuit, more specifically, the coordinated attacks which happen once every second against enemies who have a punishment mark applied to them. Do note that she has 2 different types of marks. The weaker version, Sinner's Mark, is applied with basic attacks, her intro skill, and her ultimate, and will only stay on the enemies as long as she stays on the field. This particular mark is pretty much irrelevant to our overall damage output if you play her optimally, since what we want to always have on our enemies is the stronger version, Punishment Mark. This one gets applied by using her Enhanced Heavy Attack, which she can use once her Forte Circuit gauge is full. Her Forte Circuit gauge gets charged by skill, intro skill, normal attacks, and heavy attacks, and also by her weaker coordinated attacks. But there is one combo which almost fully charges it from 0, and unless you just like to style on your enemies while doing pretty much meh damage, should be the combo you pretty much always want to use. This combo is done by cancelling your intro skill into resonance skill, into a heavy attack, into the second part of your skill. After this, you can go straight into your enhanced heavy attack to apply the punishment mark in a huge AoE, which you can then cancel into a quick swap to your DPS character. If you have Yinlin on field and have to dodge an attack, you can use her dodge counter and then cancel that into the very same combo of skill, heavy attack, skill, and then use this as a punish combo. So why exactly is it so important to apply this stronger version of the mark to enemies? While the weaker version of her coordinated attacks can only be triggered by Yinlin, this stronger version stays on enemies even if you swap characters. So once it is applied, you really shouldn't stay on Yinlin any longer, as that will be wasting your damage. Since, as we previously discussed, while her animations look amazing, the multipliers are so bad she might as well be healing the enemy with her normal attacks. Instead, cancel your enhanced heavy attack by quick swapping straight into your DPS character, and then continue pummeling the enemy with much stronger basic attacks, while Yinlin will keep doing the vast majority of her damage from off the field. As for how you can optimally do that, we will now go over two different types of rotations depending on whether you want to use her in a quick swap team or a more traditional hyper carry team. In a quick swap team, in order to truly maximize your damage output while minimizing your field time, it is optimal to always just do the bare minimum while you do swap Yinlin on the field, especially so that you always have some source of substantial damage output whenever you do quick swap into her. For example, you could do rotations such as this one shown on the video here, by starting with Verena, going into Yinlin just to get her enhanced heavy attack on the enemies ASAP, and then swap straight to Calcharo, who will want to be using quick swaps often, and with each quick swap, your Yinlin can contribute some meaningful damage before swapping back. Start with her ultimate on the first swap, do echo skill on the next one, and then for your last one, you can do your full forte charge combo from before, and then start the rotation all over again from Verena. Now, if you find this type of dynamic quick swap heavy rotation too daunting, luckily for you, Yinlin's outro buffs add substantial damage to Calcharo even if you don't use his quick swaps. So while your DPS ceiling will drop a bit, you can opt to go for a more hyper carry style of rotation, which will be a lot easier to execute. A rotation like that could be something like starting with Verena, then rotating into Yinlin, staying on field while doing all the damage you can, making sure you charge your concerto gauge, finish off with an enhanced heavy attack before you swap into Calcharo, and then stay on field and mash away on your ultimate's basic attacks, enjoying all the damage buffs that Yinlin's outro skill provides. Another reason to use this rotation would be if your on-field DPS is not Calcharo, in which case you might not want to use a quick swap heavy playstyle to begin with. While her optimal partner is going to be Calcharo, she does work very well with pretty much any main DPS character, especially if their Resonance Liberation does substantial damage. Running her as a sub DPS for Jiyan, Havoc Rover, Danjin, or even Chixia are all pretty legit team setups. If you have an E3 or more preferably E5 Yuan Wu, and he is well built, you can technically even run him as your DPS. As for how strong she is, I think she is currently the strongest sub DPS character in the game, which makes sense, since she is our first limited sub DPS. If you get a feel for how to use her rotations, especially in a quick swap team, she is going to be doing a similar level of DPS from off the field as your on-field DPS character, which is honestly pretty nutty. Are you a proud Yinlin owner? Did you lose your 50-50 like I did and had to run all over the map to scavenge enough Astrites to finally be able to get her? Let me know all about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the guide and found it helpful, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Dr. Misk. Until next time, peace.